Impact investing is investing in enterprises that work in the market, typically charge for their services, but where the investor is seeking social outcomes as well as a financial return. The answer is yes, but the answer is also it depends. You can do good in private equity and venture capital in areas where you're bringing capital to an enterprise that it otherwise wouldn't happen. You can also do good if you're making what are sometimes called sacrificial or concessionary investments, where you're expecting a below-market risk-adjusted return. The one area where you can't do good is investing in large-cap, publicly traded markets, because your investment just doesn't make any difference in those markets. You have to decide what area you want to have impact in. Whereas financial returns are basically the same, whatever you invest in, impact investing on the social side requires a degree of intentionality. It's what do you care about? So I may care about improving mobile telephony, probably not in the US, but in Bangladesh. You may care about clean water in Africa, and somebody else may care about improving poor communities in the US. So each of us would find different areas. If there are social enterprises in those areas that we think are impactful, each one of us would find investments in those areas. If you're doing pure philanthropy, you do due diligence to see whether it's a good nonprofit organization. If you're doing pure investment, you do due diligence to see if it's solid and is going to bring a financial return. If you're doing impact investing, you have to do due diligence for both of those. So it's a tougher task. Whenever you're trying to optimize on more than one outcome, and in this case it's both social impact and financial return, it's just harder to find good opportunities. One of the things that makes an impact investing fund or fund manager or individual good at it is they have the same knowledge of a particular market. Take sanitation in Africa or health in India. They have the same knowledge that John Doerr at Kleiner Perkins has of high-tech social media investments, right? So it requires great knowledge of a domain, and then you see things that the world at large doesn't see. You see opportunities, and that's where the trick is. A social impact bond, it's a terrible terminology. I think one might better call it sort of investor-backed pay-for-success scheme, because it has two parts. The first part is government contracting with a service provider. For example, somebody who provides homeless service or who reduces recidivism among youth let out of prison, contracting with them not to perform the service, not to counsel the people, but for actual outcomes. So it's a performance-based contract. And that in itself is fairly unusual in government contracts. Government tends to support somebody just providing the services and not measuring whether they actually achieve outcomes. So that's the easy part, relatively. The second part, which is why it's called a bond, is that if you're paying an organization to provide services, then you can pay them by the week or by the month or the quarter. If you're waiting for outcomes, it's going to take years before you actually know whether they achieved the outcome. So the question is, how is the organization going to have working capital during this period? And here's the other part of a social impact bond. There are investors who will put money into the organization during the period before it proves success, and then the investors get paid back, depending on whether the organization succeeds. The investor or organization only gets paid if it meets agreed upon metrics. So the measurement of outcomes is, in effect, built into that scheme. So if you take an example, in Massachusetts, the state entered into a contract with an organization called ROCA and investors to reduce recidivism below the existing baseline. Right now, if you're a young man let out of a prison in Massachusetts, the chances are 60% you'll be back in prison within 5 years. So the goal of this particular arrangement is to reduce that rate. So you know what the standard rate is, the baseline rate, and what the organization does is they agree that they're going to reduce it by some fixed amount, and you only get paid if you reduce it by that fixed amount. So the outcome is really part of the deal. And I think that's a terrific way for governments to work, and I think it's a terrific way for nonprofit organizations, which are often pretty sloppy about outcomes, to work as well. I think it brings a terrific discipline to all the organizations. I think that both impact investing and the subset, social impact bonds, it's early days. And I think that it's quite possible that these are both kind of flash in the pans, they're fads, and it'll turn out that you can't sustain investments in this area, that you can't find investments that are going to make a return, and that the investors who are willing to take a concession, there are not enough of them, or they might do just as well making grants. So I regard both of these as really interesting experiments, but I'm not a booster of these things. I want to see where they go. I'm an enthusiastic student. If it works, you're going to find new ways of financing social enterprises and allowing them to scale in a way that philanthropy alone can't do. And if social impact bonds work, you'll find a new way of government being attentive to outcomes and organizations being more attentive to outcomes. So I don't know how great the upside probability is, but if it eventuates, the upside is terrific.